So whenever you see a mobile phone in a film, whenever you see a computer screen, whenever you might see a TV screen or a hologram, that's this area of specialism that we've become known for in this industry. And I'm incredibly passionate about it. It really started. Who knows what this film is? You recognize this? So this is War Games. If any of you know what a dial-up modem is, this will mean a lot to you. And as a kid, when I was watching this, and I'm a massive fan of 1980s movie making, I guess I just suddenly realized that you can use data, you can use screens, and for a moment, you can tell a story with that in a way that you can't with other things in a film. So you can't explain this situation with big vision. Well, you could see nuclear missiles going off, but it's not about the actors. It's suddenly about this screen content. So we have these little moments of opportunity to tell stories in a different way within a bigger story, in terms of a bigger world. So that's when I first became aware of it. I am obsessed with holograms. I put it down to this. I want holograms everywhere. I want to be able to watch films holographically. I think it would be amazing if we were all in a round looking down and you were watching a movie three-dimensionally. I think that would be insane. So I've essentially set up a company to allow me to do that one day. All the technology people here, if you're making it, I want to be in on that. That's my only pitch. So we have feelings about technology. I know there's been a lot of talks today, so brilliantly talking about emotional connection. We hate our mobile phones, we love our mobile phones. There's a real resonance that goes on there. And why is it that certain technologies feel a certain way? So there's real nostalgia and charm that comes through when you look at something that doesn't quite work right. There's friction there. You have to kick it. Han Solo didn't have a fun time driving the Millennium Falcon, if we really think about it. And there's a beauty in that we kind of need to acknowledge, that actually putting some barriers in the way, struggling through technology, just actually builds up some empathy there. Now, equally, technology can just be used to tell very efficient story moments. So, those rebels are screwed. We can see that. And any moment now. And saying that in any other way, other than an infographic in a film, would be really, really tricky. And I had to drop this one in. Machine visioning, it's often part of what we're doing now. Seeing the world through a machine's eyes is an interesting take, and it's something that we get asked to do more and more. Imagining or kind of playing, I guess if you think about Skynet in Terminator, it's playing on those fears and those suspicions that we have around technology. We like to put the problem onto it's not us, we made the gun, but we're not pulling the trigger. So that's an interesting take, and it becomes a big part of the emotional play that a director will use to embed feeling in there. And then finally, Tom Cruise, bugger, gets referenced to us every single time. Tom waving his hands around. That was actually a really smart thing to do in a film. So if when I try and tell my mum what we do in technology, she does think we fixed Tom Cruise's computer. I've tried explaining it a little bit more, and so, okay. So you essentially do emails and spreadsheets for superheroes. Like, well, yeah, I guess. But what was clever about this was it was suddenly, using physical performance and really integrating the use of interaction in movie making and storytelling. And up until that point, my job was essentially making emails and spreadsheets look really exciting. So uploading to a memory stick. Ooh, is it going to copy over in time? That's hard. It's hard. It's a hard job what we're doing here. So Tom waving his hands around, Robert Downey Jr. It's like, oh, you're saving me a little bit here. Okay, that's good. So get the sexy actors in the way, and then suddenly our interaction becomes that much more important. It's good. So our process, and I think this is the interesting bit for anyone on the technology side, is actually world building, design, storytelling. Whether it's for a feature film or actually whether it's for something in the real world, it's very much connected. So we start off with a script, and we're all trying to push in the same direction. And it's the problem we're solving. We're trying to understand what's inside that director's mind and where that vision is headed. And we're all coming at it at the same time. And when I say all, us as a graphics team, visual effects, set deck, the costume department, all the creative fields are kind of pushing towards this thing together, and we're finding the meaning in the words, we're understanding the characters, we're looking at the logic, and we're trying to understand what are the mechanisms that are going on here that are defining the culture within this script. So we really, really pick that apart and analyze it. And it's a beautiful kind of what-if process. You know, I'll sit on the train and just think about things and blue sky think, and things will just come through. And then you start doing things like this. So this is us working with the art department. See it, you know, working on Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's all these incredible, talented people working on this film, and it just ups the level for everyone because you see this incredible art where you think, oh my God, we've got to get up to that standard too. And we start building our data visualizations and holograms into the concept art and constantly thinking about the overall design language, the overall societal structures that are playing out within these films, and then how we might imbue the little storylines within. It's so, so important to all films and all film directors not to repeat themselves. You know, they genuinely want to find original solutions. When I was working, so our first film at Territory Studio was Prometheus, which is a visually beautiful film, and the kind of the real gem from Ridley was setting us off on a path. He was trying not to iterate, so you know, forget about Minority Report, forget about Iron Man. I want you to be influenced by underwater sea life. So if you were to build an interface and a data system that is inspired by an organic system, what would that start to look like? How would that start to come through? So we completely explored like really luminous colors, organic systems, data that just felt constantly alive. And that just helped all the graphics within the movie have its own voice and feel true, I guess, to the original sense it was coming through in the H.R. Geiger stuff, which is, you know, organic meeting machine. You know, it needed to be that real kind of visual contrast to make that work. So we really lived by this statement, and that is understanding what's going on now, because that, and asking questions of now to project ahead into the future. So really deep dive on what's going on now and asking those questions of now to understand, is that where we want to be? Because currently this crap that's going on now is only going to get worse if we stand on this trajectory. And that's often the case with a lot of the work that we do. So, learning from costume department and lots of others, you know, our field is, I guess, quite new. Motion graphics and data visualization in films is still quite a new thing. But the film industry has been going for a long time now. And watching costume designers, they would so deep dive in on the research. You know, everything. It's the weave of the fabric. It's the weight of the fabric. How's that weight of the fabric going to change the actor's performance? What does that weave of the fabric say about their place in society? There's so much meaning in there. So working on The Martian, the best thing that Ridley could do for us was just say, go and chat to NASA. Go and truly understand what's going on at NASA Mission Control. And they have such a sense of where their tech's going to be in 50 years' time that they could completely stipulate where all of NASA Mission Control would be and the sorts of data that they look at. So this gentleman in the middle is Dave Lavery, and he would just sit on the phone with us for hours, just explaining to the design team exactly what it is that they're all looking at and how that data changes and evolves over the course of a mission going wrong. Now, leaving Matt Damon on the surface of Mars, I wouldn't say that's wrong, but somebody had to go back for him. There's a lot of data, and we had to fully understand that and then really sit as visual translators between NASA wanting this thing to be as authentic as possible and really true to how they do behave, and then Ridley that needed to tell a story. And we were somewhere between the two, and it really surmises, I guess, our role in films a lot of the time. Now, the great thing is NASA have so much incredible imagery. And because what we're showing on screen will often just flash up for 3 seconds and it's gone, those images need to read super quick. You know, it's in the same way that you might, you know, working on a commercial or just thinking about a digital product and something, just that minute little moment conveys so much, you have to put a lot of focus in on there. And this is what we get. So NASA Mission Control, that was actually a full live set. There was nothing put in post. That's all live graphics. That's data updating to the story. We had a server control so that we could pump out new graphics and new things to each of the actors. It was all interactive. And it was a logistical nightmare because they never film these things chronologically. So you're kind of starting at the end of the film, and then an actor starts asking questions, and it's just... Anyway, so everyone thinks it's this. It's not this. Most of the time, we're trying to get away from this whole idea of green. We genuinely believe in feeding those graphics in onto the film set and making a true difference. Now, actors are very disrespectful and just stand in front of our graphics a lot of the time. And even if you are The Rock, you know, there's a lot of work gone into that graphic right there. But so this is what a film set looks like. This is just taken on an iPhone, just recording around. This was for, we do a lot of these, CIA situational rooms, very important to the storytelling process. But you can see, so a cinematographer can walk around, they can find their shots, directors are changing things, and they don't have to think about, well, how's that going to look in the edit afterwards? I can see it. And actors point to things, they respond to things. My wife's an actress, and she's held us to task a lot of the time because, you know, you don't want to be acting against nothing. And it's not just about responding to the other actors. It's about truly believing and immersing yourself in that environment. So we really believe in the power of this. And it's no more work. Actually, it's probably more work to do it in post. So we think that that's truly powerful. That's a random slide, and I'll talk about that later. So have you all seen Blade Runner 2049? I hope you have, because I'm about to ruin it for you, if you haven't. Yeah. So that was our client. He is a lovely man. And I know this is being recorded, but he is a lovely man. So we worked with Denis, we worked with Dennis Gaston, who's the production designer, so the overall architect of the visual of the film, incredible, Paul Inglis, supervising art director, and Roger Deakins. If you know anything about Roger Deakins, he wins Oscars and shoots everything beautifully and just recently won the BAFTA. So we had this incredible creative team that we were plugging into. We're all going at this problem solving at the same time. Now it's hard, you know, when you get the phone call and it's, we're working on the next Blade Runner film, do you want to join us? You immediately say, yes, of course. But then you then get into, holy crap. Like, we're fans of the original Blade Runner. Everyone's a fan of the original Blade Runner, pretty much. And you can't fuck this up. Like, it's quite a big deal. So there was a huge amount of personal pressure on our shoulders. And it's threading a needle, because you want to make a film that was, you know, true to the original, but you have to make it for today's audience. So just tiptoeing around that, really, and finding the right balance. And it's a lot of problem solving. There's a lot of creative problem solving to find that balance. The great thing about Denis was he gave us a really clear brief that we were all working to. 3 words: scale. So to create massive scale, the point of that is to actually create isolation for everyone living in that world. So by creating these massive vistas, especially like the exteriors like that, you know, that's an Atari logo. By doing that, you're making everyone feel quite alone. And that's an important emotion to play on, as is power. Mostly, you know, the power play going on between humans and replicants, but corporate power, you know, massively playing on this corporate power system. And that was all leading into, the most important word in all of this was brutality. Denis really wanted to wake up the audience. It's like, this is where we're headed. You know, this is important. This is not okay. You know, if we stand on this trajectory, this is where we're going to be. Blade Runner is still relevant. So it's about how humans were treating replicants, and just seeing that brutality living and breathing through the skin of it. You know, hopefully if you saw the film at the cinema, it's quite intense, especially with the sound score. It was all about just like, come on, this is really happening. Here's our work.
I want to ask you some questions.
Just checking in on an old serial number.
That's gonna be tough.
So lots and lots of work there. You know, not all me, surprise, surprise, a very talented team. So just taking you through the process, so concept art, we could see that everyone was using just traditional media. You know, normally on a film, you'd see them on these kind of big intuitive screens and they're doing touchscreen and all that kind of stuff, and very much digital media. The entire art department had completely changed their tool set. They realized that to resonate with the film that was made then, but to make it for now, something had to change in their process. And so everyone was going back to more traditional methods, I guess. And even, you know, when we're using 3D, it's using 3D models, but it's projecting drawn concepts onto that. And I think that was an important thing for us to learn, was just to question our teams, question our process, question our tool set for every single project. We need to adapt every single time to make that work for us. So at the very beginning, lots of visual conversations going on with the director and the creative team, and we were looking at analog technologies. So this idea that technology had been reset, hard drives had been wiped, there was an utter distrust of electronic technology. So most of society, other than the upper echelons, they were all using hacked together optical displays, microfiche, analog display units on acetate, all these kind of ideas. And we also looked at bioluminescence, which is an organic material that can display things, but in an imperfect way. And we started trying to do that with, you know, these were some of the ideas that were coming through, and kind of optical plates to kind of give the idea of DNA and mechanical things slotting into place. But our early designs were going wrong. We were using Photoshop. We were doing classic sci-fi, I guess. And as beautiful as this is, it really wasn't what the director was looking for, and we were getting a lot of pushback. Same again with this, it was just too luminous, it was too CGI, it just didn't feel true to the rest of the spirit of the film, and we were checking this against the film set designs, and we could see it ourselves. What do we need to do here? So we just stepped away from the computer and started trying to figure out, well, how would we make this imagery if we don't have access to Photoshop and Illustrator and all the other things? And so if you're doing a brain scan next time, just think about cutting up a watermelon, doing some photogrammetry, scanning it, projecting it, re-imaging it, and introducing digital analog overlays, analog processes. Suddenly, our fridge looked like a mess with, you know, pigs' hearts and bones and all sorts of other weird stuff in there. But the material coming through just suddenly felt that much more relevant. So that is Kay's brain scan, a melon. But suddenly the design work just became that much more true to the sense of the film, and Denis just started signing things off because he was buying into our creative process. It didn't matter about the end results. They were naturally happening correctly because we'd switched over to that way of working. And that's when it all just started slotting in together. A big part of what we did for Blade Runner is truly thinking about the story. So in the original film with Harrison, he zooms in on a photograph and he discovers a reflection in a mirror. And that says a lot about Deckard and his character and what you kind of discover later on. And again, more and more experiments, getting it wrong, failing fast, lens flares, don't ever use lens flares, bad idea. And finally, we got to this point where we kind of photographed and 3D scanned this pelvis bone, and it was all about just taking design away, just letting the content breathe and come through, and just having that confidence that the process was correct and the right results would come through, and that's what started coming out from it. I won't lie, designing for a spinner flying car is pretty cool. We enjoyed that. You design into the concepts for the flying car, so you can't work on your designs devoid of the environment around it. It just doesn't work. You have to see it in context like that. Denis wanted this sense that any of Kay's technology had a slight warmth to it, because actually the replicants were acting or behaving more human than the humans. And so that needed to be just a slight undertone in all the work coming through. And it couldn't be car, much to Peugeot's distaste, who wanted their logo everywhere. We had like far more of an aviation design language going on, just thinking about how this would actually pan out. And we did a lot of research around the tech and the potential of drone-like mobility, I guess. So all of this thinking, all of this work kind of translates over to things that we do with the real world. And that comes through in, and I can't talk about it too much because of NDAs, but lots of electronic automotive type work and driverless cars and all that sort of thing. And again, it's world building. It's thinking about the future of transport, the future of cities, the future, it all ties together. You can't think about your project in isolation. You're going far broader, thinking about this ideal position in the future and then building stories on top of that. Works so well for automotive, works so well for, electronics giants that we work with. We've done a lot of work with Sony in terms of thinking about where their technology is headed and what those experiences look like. We were recently asked to work with wearable tech brands and bring an element of fantasy to it, because we do want to escape, but there's a moment where you can do that in a functional sense, and that's where it kind of comes back to the fictional work that we did with Avengers. So more recently, we were off the back of some of the work that we did on Avengers in terms of scanning and tissue and 3D. We've been working on this amazing project with a company in New York called Mediviz. And this is terrifying because we're actually responsible for something, and it's not just make-believe anymore. So we worked on a HoloLens project where you take radiography samples, you can completely extract that into a three-dimensional mesh and then overlay that onto a patient. So you've got a live stream of their X-ray over the body while you're operating on them. So this is the first FDA-approved application like this. And it was funny because we were exploring these ideas way back in Avengers and various different methods of just kind of blue sky thinking. We were thinking about it in terms of storytelling. But actually, you can map that onto a real world. And actually, how interfaces work in a three-dimensional sense, well, is quite a different way of thinking. It's far more architectural and performance-based. It's all about people and physical movement and their interaction with space. It doesn't feel like a UX or 2D exploration anymore. So it's more and more of these kind of real-world projects coming through, and it's exciting to map fictional against fact.